The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Neil, my sweet Neil. We have not talked about Anthony Davis. We have gambling stuff. The offseason is full swing. I haven't talked to you since the Raptors won the championship. There is an infinite amount of things to talk about, and we have to do a Blazers Post-Mortem, but I guess first thing is first. The Uncle Leo treatment. Hello, Neil.
Hello, Dan.
I always love that Seinfeld Uncle Leo stuff. Hello, Jerry. How are you, my man? What's going on?
I'm doing all right. It's good to talk to you. I have been celebrating a Raptors victory the last few days, so I was happy to see them pull it out. Other than that, I've got to call up Adrian to get my insider information on the draft because I have not been following that. And then we have this big trade news that goes down. The NBA really is 365.
365. It never sleeps. What did you make of the Durant and Klay Thompson injuries? I haven't talked to you since that stuff. It felt like I talked a bit about the KD one kind of creating this vortex for the Lakers to get Anthony Davis. The Klay Thompson one I think we'll segue into when we talk betting odds for next year. But do you feel like the Warriors did something wrong with either of those ones? I think you probably heard my take on this. I'm curious what you felt about those two big injuries.
Oh, you mean did something wrong in terms of playing KD?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know enough information to know. It's hard for me to think that he wouldn't have enough agency to say no if he didn't want to. I think he wanted to be out there.
Right, but should he have been though?
Oh, see, here's the thing. I don't know. Unlike your wife, I'm not a doctor. I don't.
She is a doctor, though. I'm the one that's not a doctor.
Dan, but you got into med school. That right there is the thing.
Yes, thank you. You can tell all of my relatives that when they're like, "What did you do? Why did you not?" And then you can be like, "He got in though. See, look at how far he got." Yeah.
No, I don't know. You think they should have protected him from himself? Do you think
yes, I think.
Yeah, maybe they should have. I just don't know. Like, how is that a random thing? What I was really surprised about, more than him playing, he played 12 of the first 14 minutes, which I thought was really surprising.
Yeah, it was extremely surprising. Then people want to go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was talking over you. I was saying, yeah, if he's going to play, I don't know why you don't play him in like 4 to 5 minute stretches. You know, it just seemed like that seemed really bizarre.
Yeah, he hadn't played in a month and a half, I think, right?
Yeah. That's what surprised me the most.
I agree. I think they should have taken better care of that situation. But and then I'm on the other side of the fence with Klay Thompson, who I know people want to just extrapolate and kind of drag one mistake to the other. But they felt like very different scenarios to me. Klay had already been back for a game and a half, 2 games, I think, at that point. He seemed to be fine. That one really felt more like a freak injury, where the Durant one, you're like, well, I mean, first quarter and a half back from a month and a half long calf absence, and then he hurts the tendon directly beneath the calf. Listen, that all felt like it tied together a little too easily. With Thompson, I don't think you can drag one to the other. I don't think the Warriors did anything wrong with Klay. He seemed to be fine, and he's like superhuman with his healing stuff.
Oh yeah, they're completely independent events. I don't think he was injured until he wasn't.
He was hurt. He wasn't hurt until he was hurt, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he plays through pain. He's one of the toughest guys from what I hear out there. But it was just the way that play worked out that just his knee buckled. So
yep. So it goes.
It was so sad to see that.
So the Raptors then, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and segue right into. Well, first of all, I'm at Dan Besbris. He's at Ball with Neil on Twitter. This is Fantasy NBA Today. Hello, everyone. I said hello to Neil, but I didn't say hello to you guys. This is a Hoop Ball presentation. It's also presented by our title sponsors here at All Things Hoop Ball AV, the good folks at Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company. That's hawaiianisles.com. Make sure to give them a check on Twitter at HI Kona Coffee. And obviously, I'd be most thrilled if you went and you got something at their website. Or you can check them out, search for Hawaiian Isles at Amazon.com. That stuff can come to your doorstep prime. Neil, on Monday morning, I got on with Gil, my buddy over on VSiN, and we were talking a bit about futures bets for next year. I know that you feel like almost all futures bets are a little bit of a sucker bet. I don't know that I'm completely in agreement with you. I think sometimes you can isolate a few things here and there. Talking about injuries a little bit, Klay Thompson as a guy coming back from injury, and we'll loop back around to that. But I want to start with the Raptors because they just won a championship before our very eyes, and they're plus 1,000. They are a 10-1. It's an underdog, effectively, at this point, to repeat. So does anybody think Kawhi is going back? I mean, that's a pretty cheap price on a team that just won the title.
Yeah, they must know Kawhi's not coming back. It doesn't make any sense otherwise.
But
I mean, if he's coming back, they should be the favorite, right?
I understand that not everything he's doing is based in reasonable logic, but I've looked at the Toronto Raptors salary situation, and I'm guessing that someone in his camp has as well. Basically, this entire team is signed for one more year. Not two, not half a year, one. They're all back, and then they're all gone. The whole team. I think Norman Powell's the only Raptor signed for more than one more season. So if you're Kawhi, just trot it out there for one more year with Toronto. You can inch yourself closer to that, 10-year in the league supermax stuff. I think they've got the 1-1 as a possibility there. I am tempted by that 10-1 on Toronto just in case he does come back because there's no Kevin Durant, and as we just saw, Raptors and the Warriors with Klay Thompson were basically a dead heat. And unless you think the Lakers are going to beat them, which maybe you do, we can get to that here in a minute, Raptors, that same team should be able to win again. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. What about the Warriors? I know
you're not crazy. I think 10-1, if he comes back, that'll shoot up, right?
I would assume so, but I don't know how high it would go.
I don't know, but then how would you hedge it? Because I think it's a good value if he does. I think you're right. I think if you're buying at the absolute bottom right now.
Let me give you some of these other numbers.
If he's coming back. If he's not coming back, then it's going to drop out even further, I think. But anyway, go ahead.
Let me give you some of these other numbers on futures.
Yeah.
You can tell me if it's a terrible deal, a decent deal, or just you don't give the first flying you-know-what. The Bucks at plus 600.
Oh, gosh. I need to see who's coming back before I make that bet.
Oh, come on, Neil. Put your foot down.
Wow.
I'm going to nail you for it once per show.
I would say, gosh, the East is so crazy. I would say the Bucks would be the favorite to come out of the East. And if I had to pick today. So I would say that's actually not a bad price.
Not a bad price. I'll take it. By the way, right before we went on air, I said I was going to ask Neil if he had seen one thing in particular. Our good friend Beans, who listens to all of our stuff, he commented on our show last week where I tortured you. Remember, you may recall, previously on Dan and Neil on Fantasy NBA Today, I tortured you for taking a middle-of-the-road opinion, and he yells, "Have some conviction, Neil," and then laughed. He was obviously in good fun. So we're just going to keep torturing you about this. That's
sure.
Yeah,
I don't even remember what we're talking about.
I don't either. I have no recollection of it. I just remember that I gave you a hard time.
That's
Rockets,
how it normally goes here on here. Okay.
The Rockets at plus 800. By the way, I hate this wager.
Oh, yeah. I would see. This is where you want to bet the no.
Yeah.
They have no chance of going to the finals next year. Yeah.
Especially because now we've got all these reports about how much they hate one another.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows what's going to happen with the coaching staff, the players, who's going to be there. So
I'm going to work my way up to some of the more interesting, we'll call them like almost polarizing values on this thing. Next one on the list, the Thunder at 20-1.
Wow, really? 20-1?
Yeah, and I'll pair that.
That's not bad in all cases.
I'm going to pair that with two others. The Jazz and the Blazers are 30-1. Do any of them really have the chance to get over the hump? Is the question I'll ask you, because you have to be able to do that to win a championship.
You know what? I think I bought the Jazz last year at 40-1.
Now would be the time to get them because it sounds like they're going for Mike Conley, and that to me puts them in that top tier. I don't know if that makes them better than the top tier, but it gives them the one position on the floor where they really were not good the last couple of seasons. Ricky Rubio was not going to be their guy.
Yeah, but you also have to count on Donovan Mitchell taking a step forward, so we'll see how that works out.
So what you're saying is I should ask this same question of Adrian Benjamins.
No. I will have some conviction and say 30-1 is, I think, a good price on Utah.
All right. What about Thunder at 20-1? Any chance that a healthy Paul George could get them through the playoffs?
Yeah, that's still a little pricey for me.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. What do you think? Are you making any of these bets?
Thunder, I'm a little yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Truth be told, probably not.
Utah, I'd rather roll the dice on Utah 30-1. Than
Thunder.
20-1.
Man.
I've had to pick two. But I heard you talked about the Warriors. Aren't they crazy?
I did. Yeah, I was looping around to that one. We'll jump to them right now. I got no problem with that. Warriors opened as 14-1. They're currently 12-1 to win the title, which I think is, to me, that's the value on the board right now, which feels nuts.
That is the best bet because you have Steph, you have Draymond. I think you have Clay for playoffs at the worst case scenario. They're going to get someone. They lose KD, right? They're going to be able to get somebody. Now, maybe not a superstar, but they're going to be able to fill out that roster of shooters.
Unless he comes back. Unless KD comes back. In which case,
you're right. Unless he comes back, right? And he just, I guess that would change things.
But they can. Bit. I mean, I think they'll have. I believe they'd have their mid-level, and then they could bring in all their usual accoutrement veterans minimum guys if they needed to. They're probably going to lose Kevon Looney, although maybe they could pay him to come back. I just, like you said, I mean, to me, if Klay Thompson is healthy on the first day of the playoffs, I think Steph, Dre, and whoever gets them in. Even if it's like a 7 seed, I think they're getting in. And then with Klay, we saw it this year. Steph, Dre, and Klay, they're the best team in the West.
I was going to say they're coming. That's the favorite out of the West,
which is wild. And yet, as I stand before you today, there are 1, 2, 3 Western Conference teams with pricier odds. We already talked about the Rockets at plus 800. The other two, Neil, are the Los Angeles teams. One of them has LeBron and Anthony Davis. The other one has Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
They do have. Hey, they've got, yes. And Danilo Gallinari.
Yeah, maybe, unless they trade. I mean, listen, this is not me ragging on the Clippers, but they are plus 700 right now. So right now, if you're buying the Clippers, Neil, and you can correct me if I'm saying something that seems off base, this feels like a number that is already built into them getting Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, more than Kawhi, right?
Yeah, that looks like two guys plus 700.
Because this is where the betting markets are just, the inside information is just way up there. Because how else can you explain that line?
Well, I don't know. Some jokester who was just like, I talked to Uncle Dennis and he told me Kawhi's coming. He could have walked in and put $15,000 on the Clippers, and that would have blown up the line because nobody else has bet it yet.
Oh, maybe you're right. But that was not the original price?
I don't know. This I don't know. Okay. I only knew the Warriors opened at 14-1 because I was texting with Gil, and he was like, it was 14-1. I watched someone walk in and bet $5,000 on them, and they lowered it to 12-1 while he was standing there. So I mean, rumor mill, whatever. KD is not playing next year. He was one of the guys I thought might go to the Clippers. Even if Kawhi does go to the Clippers, who, by the way, I really like LA. I think they had an unbelievable season. They got Lou Williams, they got Montrezl Harrell. Adding Kawhi Leonard makes them a very good basketball team. I mean, plus 700 though. That's the second best odds in the West, behind the Lakers, who, by the way, wildly overpriced at 3-1. At least they do have the best player of his generation and maybe the best big man in the NBA. Like, at least there's a reason behind that. Those guys are already on the Lakers. It's still not a price I'm betting. You couldn't give me the money to wager on the Lakers at 3-1, but you really couldn't give me the money to bet on the Clippers at 7-1. The time you want to bet on the Clippers is after a rumor comes out that says no one's going there. Well, then you probably just leave them alone altogether anyway.
Well, that's what you want to bet them know. Yeah. What I think, though, is even if Kawhi is on the Clippers, I would still rather have the Warriors future than the
What if it's just Clippers. Kawhi?
Yeah, so it's just Kawhi and Shai and those other guys. Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
I think I'd still rather have the Warriors future.
I'm looking at the Clippers contracts right now because it's been a little bit since we did their post-mortem. Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, Yeah, Gilgeous-Alexander, Landry Shamet, and Danilo Gallinari. That's the rest of the roster. Jermichael Green, Garrett Temple, Wilson Chandler, Pat Beverly, Ivica Zubats, all expired. They can obviously bring some or all of those guys back. Perhaps we'll see. I actually think this team takes a step back if they don't bring Pat Beverly. Everybody knows how much I love Pat Beverly. I'm a patophile. In fantasy,
careful with that language, Dan.
I know. Getting a little bit gross over here on the podcast. Let's see what else we got on this whole list of things. We've done Raptors. We did Bucks out east. 76ers at 12-1, I believe, is the third lowest
number. That one
number.
might be reasonable as well. That they're going to be very good next year.
I mean, they could end up bringing back the gang. We've heard very little about who's coming back to the 76ers, and it might end up being all of them. I don't know.
I don't think they want to lose Butler. We'll see what he wants to do. So,
Celtics 16-1. No, thank you. Here's an interesting one.
Yeah, that one I'm going to have no conviction on because I have no idea what to make of the Celtics.
Okay, here's one that maybe I can tease you to throw bubblegum money on. The Indiana Pacers at 60-1.
Yeah, that's not bad either. What do they do to win the East? I'd probably rather go that route.
Yeah, that's true. But you know what you could do is you could bet them to go to win the championship and then hedge if they came out.
Right. Okay.
So there's another. There are ways around these sorts of things. They should have Victor Oladipo back at some point next year. The problem is that there's nobody else on the roster at the moment. It's Victor Oladipo, Miles Turner, and Dougie McBuckets. Oh no, they got Sabonis. They got Sabonis still. But Thad Young, Bojan Bogdanovic, Darren Collison, and Corey Joseph are all free agents right now. And remains to see who they'd be bringing back. I mean, I'm guessing Darren Collison's going to end up somewhere else, but maybe Thad Young returns. Still, Oladipo and Miles Turner, that's not a bad starting point in an East that could lose Kawhi Leonard. And so then you're thinking, could the Pacers upset the Bucks at 60-1? That's not crazy. I mean, they could end up being the second best team in the East if Philadelphia and Toronto don't bring back their top-tier free agents.
Yeah, exactly. Toronto's going to lose a player. Boston's losing a player. Do we know Giannis is signing for sure?
I think he's on contract for at least one more year still, right? He's not up yet. Middleton is up right now.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Giannis, it's Middleton that I'm thinking might go. So if he's gone, that changes everything from Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, these teams could all come back to the pack. Indiana is the only one that doesn't have a superstar that's in well, okay, maybe Middleton's not a superstar, but Indiana's the only team that doesn't have a star in jeopardy of not coming back to the team. Philly has to deal with Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler. They could both end up on other teams. Toronto has Kawhi Leonard to worry about. And then you just mentioned Chris Middleton in Milwaukee. And Boston, it sounds like Kyrie Irving is gone. So all of the teams that were in front of Indiana this year, all of them are at risk of losing one of their top two or both of their or someone in that top two or three on their list of guys.
Right.
Whereas Indiana, the worst thing they lose is, their third or fourth option on offense, basically. So that, I don't know. I mean, and then they, maybe they bring somebody in. Who knows? So 60-1, I might throw lunch money on the Indiana Pacers.
I might. I'll be curious to see what they are to win the Central. That'll be interesting. I might, if they're a big dog there, maybe I'll like 5 or 6-1.
All right, what do you think about the Anthony Davis stuff? You and I haven't talked since that went down on Saturday. What does the great Neil Rochlani think? Who won the trade, if anybody? It could be both. By the way, you're allowed to walk the middle line on this one because that might actually be the right answer on this one. Where do the Lakers go from here? Where do the Pellies go from here? What are your first fantasy thoughts? Believe it or not, I haven't really talked that much fantasy ramifications. So I'm going to let you steer the boat on this thing. Where do we want to go on AD today?
Yeah, let's start with fantasy ramifications. I don't think it changes LeBron or AD's value at all. That was my first thought.
Interesting.
I'm looking at their numbers. Do you think it's going to be a big difference?
I think AD could come back a little bit. I would think slightly fewer shots for him, but he does so many other things that it's kind of like, who cares if he averages 23 instead of 26 points as long as the other stuff is all basically in line. His rebounding shouldn't really take a hit, steals, blocks. Lakers can't keep anybody in front of them, so he'll just be blocking shots left and right. Yeah, I mean, You're an 8-cat guy. So he was, what was he? Was he number 2 overall in 8-cat?
He was.
Okay. So do you think he falls behind anybody?
He falls behind Steph Curry.
Oh, yeah, Steph should have a really big year.
Steph's the number 1 guy going in next year.
He's going to be a monster. He might average 6.5 3-pointers a game. What about James Harden? Can Steph get past James Harden in 8-cat? I doubt it.
Yeah, but I think I would take Steph over James just because I like his game so much better. But anyway,
yeah,
I enjoy watching him much more. But yeah, I think James is probably Harden's probably number 1, Steph's 2, and then I don't know yet where I place AD. Maybe 3rd. I don't know. Would you have him dropping down much further?
He probably falls just behind Harden in 9-cat.
Okay.
Because there was such a huge drop-off between those 2 guys and the number 3 dude in 9-cat, which was Paul George. I mean, he was like 25% less value. Yeah, so I mean, you're still... So here's the thing I'm a little bit worried about, and then talk me off a cliff or talk me back onto the cliff. I don't even know which side of the expression I need from you right now. Anthony Davis, for the first couple years of his career, the Pelicans kid-gloved him. Then he had a season where it seemed like he wanted to prove to everybody that he could be the guy, that you could rely on him, he could play. I think he put up a pretty good chunk of games played. I'll make sure that I've got the accurate numbers in front of me. The 16-17 seasons and 17-18. He played 75 games in each of those, which is pretty damn good. 75 is not nothing. He just missed 7 games each of those 2 seasons. And then this year he played 56. I believe that there will be some load management for him. But I think we can, I don't think he's the guy that sat out all those games early in his career. I feel like they were just like, we're tanking anyway, so whatever. And then this year he just didn't want to be there. I feel like it's going to be somewhere just slightly sub the 75-game seasons that he put up when he was actually trying to play all the time. So maybe like 70 to 72 games played this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's going to be. I'm not worried about injury risk for him, and I think load management is going to be for everyone next year. So I don't think you're going to get any extra value. I mean, extra worry about him versus other superstars.
What about Bron? Are you at all worried about LeBron? I mean, he finally had his first real severe injury this season. He's getting older. Is there any concern there?
I'm not worried. I think LeBron's and maybe AD. No, I think LeBron is one of these guys that when things aren't going well, he checks out, and when things are going well, he'll rev it up. So I'm assuming they're both going to be trying really hard next year. So I'm actually pretty stoked on both of them. But LeBron's free throw percentage is crazy. So I don't.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I'll probably stay away from him because of that. But in terms of his effort, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think you're going to get a better number of games played. I am a little bit concerned that the Lakers are going to be trying to dial things back. I get the feeling that this is why they so desperately want a third max guy so that they can try to get LeBron's minutes down this season. But at the same time, there's going to be this long load period at the beginning of the year where these guys are figuring out how to play together, and for that to work, they're going to have to be on the floor together a lot. So, mostly with you. I think that there will be a slight hit. The guy that, whoever it might be, the guy that would probably take the biggest hit would be if they bring in like a Kemba Walker. He's a guy that if he joins LeBron and AD, his numbers would fall off a cliff. He ain't taking 21 shots again if he's the third fiddle on that team.
Right. He goes from alpha to not alpha.
Gamma?
I don't know my Greek symbol. Sorry.
I think
Certainly not omega. I don't want to say beta to offend him, but yeah, maybe gamma. Yeah,
he may go straight to gamma. You never go straight to gamma. And then the other guys on this team, whoever they may end up being, are going to have to be, low usage, high efficiency guys, whoever that turns out to be. What about in New Orleans now? So they're revamped. They've got Drew Holiday as their lead horse. It sounds like Julius Randle's not coming back. Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart. Any initial thoughts on whether or not any of those guys end up on your fantasy team? I would assume Drew Holiday would get a spot.
Well, before I answer that question, I want to ask you how high are you going to draft Zion Williamson, since you love rookies?
Not as high as he's going to get drafted, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
He's going way early. He's going so early.
Yeah, he's going to be Yeah, he's going to be the first one taken. I think Drew Holiday is pretty much going to hold steady. I'm not going to think he's going to get much of an increase. I think Ingram might be okay. I'm worried about his percentages again for Ingram. But I think he might be the one I want.
I might take a flyer on Lonzo Ball.
In terms of market value, I'm not saying like overall value. Let me back that up. In terms of like perception versus what they can actually do, I think Ingram has the biggest upside versus his ADP probably.
Yeah, we saw him start to tap into it a little bit later last year. I'm wondering if getting Lonzo Ball out of LA fixes some of his head case stuff. Like maybe he just figures out how to hit a free throw again now that he's not under the Los Angeles limelights. He can just sort of float along. No offense, of course, to the good folks, the good Pelicans folks, but compared to the Lakers, they're kind of in anonymity down there. So, we're not going to be hearing about LeVar Ball every single day this coming season anymore. And so maybe Lonzo, some of the head stuff gets sorted out because he's a shot away from being an awesome fantasy player because his other stuff is fantastic.
Yeah, it is. I just don't know how. Like, I understand what you're saying about that pressure of LA, but his other game translated just fine. It was just his shooting, which I don't understand why that would. Why would his rebounding be fine? His passing was phenomenal, in Los Angeles. But it's just like, why would his shooting, if he had a head problem? Anyway.
Yips. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. That's why I never believe a big change in shooting until I see it because that's like the hardest thing to improve, I think.
Yeah, and these guys will probably end up getting drafted too high anyway. Drew Holiday ended up as number 21 in 9-cat. I assume he was actually pretty close to that in 8-cat last year, yeah?
Oh, gosh.
On a per game. Well, he also took a bunch of games off. Yeah. Oh. Good work, Neil.
I didn't know you were throwing a Pelicans thing at me today.
All the Anthony Davis stuff. He had 3.2 turnovers, so he might have actually even been a tiny bit higher than that. He only played 67 games. That does worry me, by the way, about Drew Holiday because I don't think the Pelicans are making the playoffs next year, so you might get some rest games from basically the only veteran on the team. He might not play down the stretch next season, which is, I think, not a good way to go into a roto draft. I think you take him because he's going to be putting up big numbers. But if you're worried about a head-to-head playoff scenario, that might be a guy to be a little bit cautious around, is Drew.
Yeah, I'm less worried about it. I think the West is still wide open near the bottom of the playoffs. And I think the Pelicans are going to want to play hard. I think all those guys are going to play hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see them winning enough games in the West to make it into the playoffs, especially if any of these Eastern superstars come West as well. You're gonna have Mavericks with Porzingis healthy, so there's all these different things that kind of creep into the mix. I'm a little bit worried about head-to-head stuff at the end of the year. Neil, the team that I've wanted to talk about from a fantasy perspective, and I can't believe I'm saying this out loud again, is the Boston Celtics, who we also didn't prepare for today. We're doing a Portland Blazers Post-Mortem here in a minute, but the fact that they are likely now to lose Kyrie Irving and possibly also Marcus Morris, suddenly a lot of touches on that team become available. Am I getting a little bit too excited? Like, is everybody else going to get excited about the Celtics too, and then they're going to end up being garbage? Or could I steal a Gordon Hayward next year? Could I steal a Marcus Smart next year? Marcus Smart is the kind of guy that fits on all of the Dan Besbris old man squad fantasy teams, and he's not even an old man yet.
Really? The percentage doesn't bother you? The shooting percentage?
Nah, because he didn't take that many.
Okay, fair enough. No, I think you're right. It's just, talking about load management, Brad Stevens does tend to not play players a lot of minutes per game.
Yeah, but he plays them so hard, though. Guys get themselves injured playing Brad Stevens level defense.
So you think that the lower minutes won't hurt their fantasy value?
Nah, not much. Right. And I just feel like with the Irving shots, that's the big thing. He was taking 19 shots a game. That's a lot to distribute amongst these other guys. Even if you split it up evenly, like 3 and change apiece for 6 other guys, that changes fantasy values pretty dramatically for that team.
Yeah, I think I would target Hayward. We'll see how he gets valued in the draft. I think he's definitely a bounce back candidate. And then Tatum, I have to see where he gets ranked, but I think he will be the alpha, and he can do a lot, as we've seen without Kyrie. So,
yeah, he might get drafted he might be
too
the one
early.
that, yeah.
He might be too early, but I do think he's going to be great next year. So
yeah, the question, yeah, I'm with you on that one. There may be sort of, I've said it before, there's sort of an Otto Porter-like fantasy line to it where you can quietly just be like the number 15 guy and no one will realize it's happening. But as promised, this is technically Portland Blazers. Portland Blazers. Who the hell calls them that? The Portland Trail Blazers post-mortem. Get your head out of your rectum, Dan. The Portland Trail Blazers, they are no longer paying Al-Farouq Aminu. His $7 million came off the books. Rodney Hood, a midseason acquisition, his money comes off the books. So does Seth Curry. The problem is that Lillard salary goes up by $1 million. McCollum's goes up by $2 million. Evan Turner's goes up by $1 million. Nurkic, Mo Harkless, Myers Leonard, all of their contracts. Zach Collins, every one of those guys' contract went up by $1 million. So even though Aminu, Hood, Curry all came off the books, the Blazers' salary cap number dropped from 132 to 126. They're stuck. They can't do anything. So why should I readjust anything? That's my question for you. If they can't change anything, why should I?
I don't think you should.
Oh, okay. Well, that's easy, I guess.
Except for maybe Zach Collins if he gets more playing time. That's the one.
Oh,
for
right. Yes, because
Nurkic.
When do we think? What was the first timeline on Nurkic? It's been a while since we talked about that. They were thinking towards the end of the season, probably, right? Or mid-season?
Say it again. I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Yusuf Nurkic, is he expected to play at all next year? I was thinking near the end of the season, right? At best.
Oh, is he gone for the entire season?
Well, I mean, his leg injury was pretty disgusting. I don't know that we have an actual. I don't know that we have an actual number, but it's gonna. Even if he comes back, he's gonna be, Gordon Hayward working himself back. He's gonna be Paul George, right, when he first came back. Sean Livingston. Right. There's gonna be some buffer zone there. So you do have a good point there with Zach Collins. Can he eat up enough of those minutes to be fantasy relevant? I mean,
I think he can. I think he's the player the team likes, and I think we've seen guys that are young get a lot of improvement in the first few years that are talented, right? They take a few years to get much better, and I think he might be on that track.
What about Myers Leonard, Neil? Should we
Yeah. He's a handsome man. He's a very handsome man, Myers Leonard. Zach Collins, though, I think is going to get more than 17.5 minutes a game. He got almost a block at that rate. I think he could be a top 100 guy if he's getting 20, 24, 25 minutes. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. I wonder where – he's a guy that to me feels like he's going to drop into that no man's land. I don't think you're going to have to use –
Oh, I don't think he's going to go in the top, 8 or 7, 8, 9 rounds,
Yeah, I would think after 90.
Oh, I wouldn't touch him before 100 because that's where I think his upside is right inside the hundreds.
If he can get the minutes, we've seen that he can get the blocked shots and the three-pointers a little bit, but, as you mentioned, he only played 17 minutes a game this year, and he tapered off pretty hard. Mo Harkless. I mean, the big guys are pretty obvious what to expect of those guys. Mo Harkless. I had Harkless Watch going in my tweets for a while, and every time I thought I was ready to take the plunge, he would take a load management game for his knee. He started playing at the end of the year, and he's actually really good in the playoffs for the Blazers. He's a guy that I'm targeting as my old man squad player. Am I crazy? And feel free to say yes.
I don't think you're crazy, but I don't trust him, so I'm going to stay away from him.
All right.
I don't think you're crazy though. I mean, he's like a 1-1-1 guy, right?
That's that's the beauty of the Mo.
That's the beauty of the Mo. I cannot help but think of The Simpsons every time I hear that name, Mo. That's the only thing that comes to my mind.
Mo Sislak. You want me to try to do the rest of this? I'll do the rest of the podcast as Mo. Hiya, Homer. Heya, Neil. What the heck just happened? I think my child just blasted something off the wall. The rest of the Trailblazers are just not. There's nothing there, right? So the reason we're talking about Mo Harkless and Myers Leonard and Zach Collins, and I'm sure my kid's going to be thrilled that there's a part of my podcast that's been saying, what the hell just happened? No Al-Farouq Aminu, which means there's a little bit of, he was playing decent minutes. There's no obvious power forward. Is it going to be more Evan? I would assume that Mo Harkless is actually going to slide up and play the 4 a little bit. Another reason for me to love the Mo. Damian Lillard was number 12 this year. CJ McCollum ended up at number 50 in 9-cat. Is there any reason to think those guys move off of those numbers next year?
I don't. I mean, Lillard's was 36 minutes, McCollum 35 minutes. I'm looking at their percentages. They weren't that bad last year.
No.
44%, 46% respectively. 3 threes, 2.5 threes. I just don't see where they can gain much. So I would not value them any higher than they were this year. I would probably avoid them because this is their ceiling, I believe.
Yeah, I think I would take McCollum if he fell into the 50s. That feels like a pretty safe
Oh,
spot.
yeah, 50s.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, because that's roughly where he ended up. A Dame, you're taking Dame at the turn. That's a super safe guy to grab on the turn. And he always ends up falling because everybody's always doing this weird, like, late first-round upside chasing thing that rarely ever works out for them. So Dame is always just sitting there like, why aren't you guys drafting me yet? I'm Damian Lillard. I've been doing this for like 8 years. What's wrong with you? I'm here. 7 years. Been in the league 7 years? Yeah, 7. I think Mo Harkless, this is where I'm going to say something stupid, and then people can hold me to it. I think Mo Harkless could be a top 80 guy this year. And here's my logic on this one. This is me trying to convince you, and I doubt I'm going to do it. But throughout his career, he's shown an ability to actually hit a pretty good field goal percent. I don't think people are aware that he's been a good field goal percent guy throughout his career. While the three-pointers are not huge, he hit 0.6 a game last season. He gets a lot of his shots in transition or near the bucket. He's not a great foul shooter, but he also doesn't take any, so it doesn't really hurt you. So he's basically 50% from the field. He was 49 this year in 23.5 minutes a game. If you stretch those numbers, and there will be a little bit of a dip as you drag him from 23 to 30, you're talking about almost a quarter jump on his stuff, which takes him from 8, 4.5, and 1 to something like 11, 10 or 11, like 6 rebounds. The assists won't change much, maybe 1.5. The thing that really intrigues me about the extra 6 to 7 minutes on the floor at the power forward spot is probably an extra rebound and possibly the ability to turn 0.9 blocks into like 1.1. And I know it's not a big change, 0.2, but it's almost like you can wipe out a guard that's really bad at blocking shots with just that tiny little tweak. You're not going to expect big scoring games and maybe 1 3-pointer a game. But if you're looking at 1 3-pointer, 1.2 or 1.3 steals, and 1.2 or 1 point whatever blocks on 50% shooting, that ends up being a top 80, top 75 guy. And so, I mean, I think he's going to get drafted in the 110, 115, 130-ish maybe even range. So to me, that feels like a no-brainer, although I also realize that that's a part of a draft where a lot of people, Neil, maybe you as well, are hunting someone that might, you might hit the lottery, where they're like a top 50 guy, and you're not that interested in someone who's kind of a boring, plodding sort like a Mo Harkless. And now I will step off my Mo soapbox, my moat box.
I mean, your numbers make sense. I don't know what his usage is going to be next year. Like, is he going to get more minutes? And I think you're right. If he does get the high 20 minutes, I think he's worth drafting. I actually think he might not even get drafted next year in many leagues because
that would be amazing.
I think you can grab him later in the rounds, and I will definitely target him with one of my last picks if he's still there. But he's just someone I don't trust. I have to see what the rotations look like in preseason, I guess, and what's coming out of the camp.
This, by the way, is why I always lose scoring in my roto leagues, because these are the guys I'm drafting. But he's solid everywhere else, and so people aren't looking at that. Like you said, the 0.2 blocks is like, what is that? Like 4 or 5 points? People don't realize that that's equivalent to like 4 or 5 points, like points per game, right? So, yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, he could be this year in 23.5 minutes a game. He combined to average 2 steals and blocks, and that's sort of my threshold. If you can hit that 2 mark combined. I don't like the expression stocks, by the way. Have you seen that on Twitter where the people are combining steals and blocks into stocks? I feel like that cheapens each of them. Don't cheapen my sweet defensive stats. He could be 2.3 combined next year very easily if he plays another 4 or 5 minutes a game. Question is, can his knee hold up? But I mean, there's a hole now at power forward, and I don't know that I see an obvious candidate to take those minutes because they're not going to play Myers Leonard and Zach Collins at the same time. Evan Turner at power forward, I don't like that at all. It feels like
I don't see that either.
Harder.
We'll see who that. You're right. There isn't much to get in free agency, so maybe you're right. Maybe he does. I just don't know if they want to play him that many minutes because of his injury issue. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried he might have a similar minute total as this year.
That's a reasonable concern. That's a very reasonable concern. If it doesn't pan out and I blow my 11th or 12th round pick on it, it won't be the end of my world. But I feel like he's almost 6'10". He's taller than people realize. He's just not that big. So they would have to play him at power forward when it's against someone else. It's more of a rangy sort. But those minutes are out there, and he's far superior at on the floor to Evan Turner, who might also see some more minutes next year as well. Is there a universe where you would draft Evan Turner? My answer to that is no, by the way.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't draft him at all.
Yeah, he's a clunky one. Remember?
I mean, he's not going to be drafted in most leagues. I would pick him up if all of a sudden he's getting like 30 minutes a night.
You mean like when he had like 3 triple-doubles in a row?
Yeah, exactly.
And
I mean, if he's getting that many, if they're like hurting and they have injuries and he's playing 30 minutes, I would want him on my roster, but I don't foresee it being a big part.
Do you remember that I went on that podcast and I said, well, if he does this again, you can call me an idiot and I'll eat my hat. And then he did it the next night. Oh, my God. I ate so much crow on that podcast. And so then on the second one, I said, well, if he does it again, I'll really eat my hat. And then he had 15 and 3. So, I figured I'd be off the hook pretty soon at that point. But, yeah, he had back-to-back triple-doubles. And then I think he had like one other double-digit rebounding game the entire year. 2 other, by the way. I've looked it up now. It's 2 other. That's your Portland Trailblazers, Neil. I think we can put a bow on this thing. No? I got nothing else.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to talk about. Is there on this team? I mean, would you say about Seth? Is he not going to come back on this team?
He's a free agent. I'm assuming he's going to want to go get some money.
Yeah, so they're not going to re-sign him.
I liked him too. I thought he played well in the postseason and towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I think he's a good player. I think he could have value on another team. We'll see where he goes.
How many minutes, like what kind of a role does he need to be looking at for you to give him a look? For me, it's close to 30 because he doesn't do much besides score and hit 3-pointers at an okay percentage.
Yeah, that's typically my threshold for anyone, unless they're like just a really high usage guy. So yeah, I would not touch him if it's less than 30 minutes.
There are some guys out there floating around that can do enough other stuff where they don't need to have the mega minute total, like a Rashawn Holmes or a Jonas Valanciunas or whatever. Seth Curry just is not. He's not one of those guys. What do you think is going to happen over the rest of this week? Is anything else crazy going to go down, or are we finally going to get a week? Well, we got the draft in a couple of days. But is anything else going to go down? Can I finally relax for a minute?
Dan, you can take a nap.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're very well.
All right, you're going to stay awake. You're going to tap me if something happens?
I will tap you through the magic of the internet. Yes.
Yeah, the internet tap. Yeah. That's like Facebook used to have the poke feature back in the day before, it got weird. He's Neil Rochlani. I'm Dan Besbris. My Twitter handle is my name. His is @ballwithneil. You never changed it to Orange Ball Neil or whatever you were thinking about way back when.
Yeah, the color orange took a bit of a turn for me. So I kind of
don't tweet @Orange Ball Neil. That's someone else, or that's Neil's burner account. I don't know. It's one of these. Thanks again to Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company for their continued partnership with us here at Hoop Ball. Have a wonderful Tuesday, everybody. Talking to Brandon Marcus tomorrow. He has nothing but hate for my Los Angeles Lakers. This is going to be a fun one, actually. He's been texting me to let me know that my Lakers takes are making him vomit. He's regurgitating listening to me talk about the Lakers. So we're going to have a fun one tomorrow. We're talking about the Bucks as well. Neil, you got the Warriors on Thursday. That's a good one.
Holy crap. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah. Adrian and Coach will wrap things up. It's the Raptors on Friday, as we mentioned. Panda, the great Panda here at Hoop Ball, he moved some of the teams around in this post-mortem to get the Warriors and the Raptors as the last 2. They were, of course, the teams in the finals, just in case it was wrapping up around then. And Panda will be doing the written breakdown of that Raptors win as well. That's the rest of this week. That's the end of post-mortems when this week is all said and done. But you got one more with me before I bid you farewell for the rest of the week. For Neil, I'm Dan. So long.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.